Hello YouTube. Today we're going to talk about Joachim Andersen's Opus 41 number 16, the Moderato. And we're going to talk specifically about how to actually articulate this one. We're going to spend a lot of time on talking about tonguing because that's what this one is all about. So normally when we look at an etude like this one, it has all 16th notes. They're all staccato. Our first instinct is to use an articulation that is very repetitive. The one we were all taught when we first learned to play the flute, and that is to just use the syllable T on every single note. Ta 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 ta. So there's nothing really wrong with that, except that it's kind of monotonous. It gets a little bit boring. So we're going to talk about how to vary that a little bit, and I do that using really only 2 syllables throughout this entire etude. I still use that T, but I don't use it all the time. I put a lot of D's in between it. So just like the magician, ta-da, TD. It leads to a very quick articulation between those 2 notes, puts a little more weight on the T, and makes that D syllable a little bit more connective. So the first thing we're going to work on as a way to practice this etude is to play this etude in groups of 2 notes using our new articulation, ta-da. Every 2 notes gets ta-da or TD. And you can hear I'm altering the rhythm to do that. I'm giving myself plenty of space to really think about what my tongue is doing and make sure that I'm getting cleanly from one syllable to the next one. Once I'm comfortable with that actual mechanism of ta-da, ta-da, now I'm going to actually look at the notes that are in this etude and see how they naturally group themselves, and I'm going to sort of rearrange those syllables to fit what the music does on the page. So, for example, that first beat, we have 4 G's in a row. The first one's important, that's going to get a T. The other ones are kind of connective, so they're going to all get D's. Ta-da-da-da is the syllable for that. Following that, we have a whole boatload of 2-note groups. So that's just like what we did on our exercise. When you look at the 4th measure, though, there's an interesting thing that happens there. I really want to group the last 3 notes of the beat together and treat the first one as kind of an ending. So first syllable is D, then ta-da-da, then another D, and ta-da-da. So that gives sort of a different feel almost to the rhythm just by changing that articulation. So that was all broken apart. Let me put that all together for you and see if you can hear the distinction between the T's and the D's that I'm doing. That was a lot faster, but hopefully you could hear those subtle changes in articulation. And what happens to me, what I notice when I'm playing that way, is my body kind of can't keep still. It's so light and floaty that you sort of naturally move along with it. And that's going to make it more exciting for your audience to listen to it as well. So I encourage you to go through this etude and experiment with ta-da, ta-da, do some craftsmanship kind of practice on that so that your tongue gets used to doing that. And then explore how you can rearrange some of these different notes to do different, or different syllables to do different things. Another section that I really like is the last section, or excuse me, the second repeated section. So at the top we had all of these repeated two-note groups. When we get into that last repeated section, we have some very, very long phrases. Really big, expansive feel as we go up in tessitura and then back down into our middle register. So throughout that section, I'm thinking ta-da-da-da, 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 starting on the second 16th note of a beat, going into the first 16th note of the next beat. But they all sort of link together that way. Then in the rest of that section, we have this interesting kind of up-down thing. And then I'm specifically thinking ta-da, ta-da, starting on the high note, D on the low note. Ta-da, ta-da. Which gives a real contrast to that expansive, continuous passage that we had before it. And then we go back to that expansive feel at the end. So I encourage you to go through this etude, get comfortable with that articulation, and then experiment and find what works for you. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.